Why do some people stay in relationships that slowly break them? Why does the quiet one, the one who never asks for much, often end up married to someone who gives even less? You have seen this pattern. You might have lived it. A person who runs from closeness, who fears being truly seen, somehow finds a partner who waits, not a partner who chases, not one who demands, but one who endures. Endures the silence, endures the distance, endures the cold mornings and empty conversations. And here is the truth that most self-help books will never tell you. The avoidant does not marry the person who loves them the most. They marry the person who tolerates them the longest. That is the psychology behind it. That is the hidden rule of human attachment. And if you are watching this right now, feeling tired of being the one who always waits, always forgives, always adapts, then stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why you attract people who cannot meet you halfway. More importantly, you will learn how to break that loop without losing your kindness. That is my promise to you. Keep watching and I will give you the map. Let us begin with a simple idea. Human beings are wired for connection, but not all connection is healthy. Some of us learned early that love is unpredictable. One day a parent is warm, the next day they are gone. One moment you receive praise, the next you receive silence. For a child, that is confusing. For the adult, that confusion turns into a survival strategy. You learn to stop asking. You learn to stop needing. You become small. You become quiet. You become the one who endures, because enduring feels safe. Enduring does not risk rejection. Enduring means you never have to feel the pain of being pushed away. But here is the trap. When you build your entire personality around endurance, you attract a specific kind of partner. You attract the avoidant, the person who cannot handle intimacy, the person who pulls back exactly when you try to get close, and the avoidant in turn feels safe with you. Why? Because you never demand anything real. You never say, "I need you to show up." You never say, "Your silence hurts me." Instead, you wait, you hope, you tell yourself, maybe tomorrow they will change. That is the dance. That is the marriage that should never happen, but happens every single day. Think about the last time you felt lonely in a room full of people, or worse, lonely next to someone who promised to love you. That loneliness is not random. It is a signal. Your brain is sending you a message. The message says, you are giving more than you are receiving. But most of us ignore that signal. We call it patience. We call it loyalty. We call it love. But psychology has a different name for it. It is called an attachment mismatch. The avoidant person has a deep fear of engulfment. They fear losing themselves in a relationship, so they keep one foot out the door. They never fully arrive. And the person who endures has a deep fear of abandonment. They fear being left alone. So they tolerate anything just to keep the other person close. You see the problem? One runs from closeness. One runs toward it, but only toward people who run away. That is not love. That is a trauma bond dressed in wedding clothes. Let me ask you something painful. Have you ever noticed that the avoidant person in your life seems more interested when you start to pull away? When you finally get tired and stop texting first, suddenly they appear. Suddenly they have energy. Suddenly they want to talk. That is not a coincidence. That is the avoidance nervous system waking up. Distance feels safe to them. When you get close, they panic. When you leave, they feel relieved. Then, when you are truly gone, they feel lonely, so they pull you back. Not because they love you, but because they need you to regulate their emotions. You become their anchor without ever being their priority. And you, the one who endures, mistake that pulling back for love. You think, see, they do care, they came back. But they always leave again. That is the cycle. That is the marriage that destroys the endurance person slowly, year by year, until you look in the mirror and do not recognize yourself. Now, I want you to hear something hard. The avoidant does not marry the best person for them. They marry the most convenient person, the person who asks for little, the person who does not rock the boat, the person who will clean the house, raise the children, pay the bills, and never say, "What about my needs?" That is the endurance partner. You have been trained to believe that love means sacrifice. That love means staying when it hurts. That love means forgiving the same behavior 100 times. But that is not love. That is self-abandonment. And self-abandonment is the fastest way to lose your soul. Psychology calls this protest behavior, when you stay silent but feel angry inside, or fawning when you people please to keep peace. These are survival tactics. They worked when you were a child and had no power, but you are not a child anymore. You can choose differently. Here is what the endurance person rarely understands. Your ability to endure is not a weakness. It is a superpower, but you are using it on the wrong people. Endurance belongs in a marriage where both people try. Endurance belongs in a partnership where effort is mutual. But when you endure for someone who never endures for you, you are not loving them. You are enabling them. And enabling an avoidant person only makes them more avoidant, because they never feel the consequences of their distance. They never feel the cold wind of your absence. You are always there, always warm, always waiting. So why would they change? Change is uncomfortable. Avoidant people hate discomfort. That is why they run from emotions. That is why they run from conflict. That is why they run from your tears. They cannot handle the heat. So you, the endurance person, learn to freeze. You learn to stop crying. You learn to stop asking. You learn to become small. And one day you realize you have been small for so long that you forgot you ever had a voice. But listen to me. You still have a voice. It is buried under years of silence, but it is alive. And the first step to using it again is to understand this. The avoidant person's behavior was never about you. Their distance is not because you are too much. Their coldness is not because you are not enough. They are running from something inside themselves, something they have never faced, something they may never face. You cannot fix them with your patience. You cannot love them into presence. That is the hardest lesson for the endurance person, because you believe that if you just love hard enough, they will finally stay. But that is not how human psychology works. The avoidant brain interprets your intense love as pressure. The more you give, the more they pull away. It is a reflex, like touching a hot stove. Your love feels hot to them. Not because your love is bad, but because their nervous system is wired to see closeness as danger. So what happens when two people like this marry? One runs, one waits, one disappears into work, hobbies, phones, alcohol, anything to avoid intimacy. The other disappears into depression, anxiety, overeating, overworking, overgiving. Neither is happy, but both are afraid to leave. The avoidant is afraid of being trapped in a relationship that demands real connection. The endurance person is afraid of being alone, so they stay. They build a life together that looks fine on the outside. Family photos, holiday dinners, a shared mortgage. But inside there is a hollow space, a space where real love was supposed to grow. That space becomes the elephant in every room. Nobody talks about it, because talking about it would mean admitting the truth that they married for the wrong reasons. The avoidant married because you were safe. You did not demand change. The endurance person married because you hoped they would finally choose you, but they never did, and they never will. Not because they are evil, but because they do not know how. Avoidant attachment is not a choice. It is a wound. Just like endurance is not a virtue, it is also a wound. Two wounded people do not heal each other by bleeding together. They just make a bigger mess. But here is where hope lives. You cannot change the avoidant person, but you can change yourself. You can stop being the one who endures everything. You can learn to say, I matter too. That sentence feels small, but to an endurance person, it is a revolution. Because you were taught that your needs are selfish, that asking for more means you are ungrateful, that setting a boundary means you are mean. None of that is true. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors. They let the right people in and keep the wrong ones out. And the right people will never make you feel guilty for having needs. The right people will not run when you cry. The right people will not disappear when things get hard. The right people will endure with you, not make you endure for them. So here is the reward I promised. If you watch this video until the very end, I will give you a practical, step-by-step method to rewire your endurance pattern. I will show you exactly how to stop attracting avoidant partners without becoming cold or bitter. You will learn the 3 daily practices that shift your attachment style from anxious endurance to secure strength. These are not theories. These are tools from clinical psychology, tested and proven. By the end, you will never again confuse tolerance with love. That is my promise. But you have to stay with me through every section, because the first step is not action. The first step is awareness. And you just took that step. Now let us go deeper. You have been the rock for someone who never stood still. You have been the calm for someone who loves storms. And somewhere along the way, you started believing that your suffering was noble, that your silence was strength. But here is the difference between real strength and survival strength. Real strength chooses when to stay and when to walk away. Survival strength just stays, no matter the cost. You have been in survival mode for so long that you forgot you had a choice. Let me remind you, you always have a choice. The avoidant person in your life chose themselves every single day. They chose their comfort over your connection. They chose their space over your presence. That was their choice. And you have been trying to earn a different choice from them by giving more of yourself. That is not love. That is a negotiation where you keep lowering your price. Human psychology has a name for this. It is called the sunk cost fallacy. You stay because you already invested so much. Years of patience, years of forgiveness, years of waiting for them to wake up one morning and finally see you. But they never do because they are not asleep. They are exactly where they want to be. The avoidant person benefits from your endurance. They get all the stability of a relationship without any of the emotional work. You cook, you clean, you plan, you remember birthdays, you carry the mental load. And what do they carry? Their phone, their hobbies, their freedom, their ability to leave the room when things get real. That is not a partnership. That is a hostage situation where you are holding yourself captive. Let me ask you a question that might hurt. If you stop doing everything you do for them, would they still stay? Not the big things. The small things. If you stop smiling when you are tired. If you stop pretending everything is fine when it is not. If you said, I am hurting right now and I need you to sit with me. What would happen? Would they sit or would they leave the room? Would they change the subject? Would they say you are being dramatic? Would they scroll on their phone? Your answer to that question tells you everything you need to know. The avoidant person cannot sit in your pain because they cannot sit in their own. Your pain reminds them of the pain they have been running from their whole life, so they run. And you are left alone in the room wondering what you did wrong. You did nothing wrong. You just asked for the bare minimum, and the bare minimum felt like too much to someone who has never learned to give anything real. Now, I want to talk about the fantasy. The fantasy that keeps endurance people trapped for decades. The fantasy says, if I just love them enough, they will finally feel safe. They will finally open up. They will finally choose me. That fantasy is not based on reality. It is based on your unmet childhood needs. Somewhere deep inside, you are still the child who tried to earn love from a parent who was distant. You learned that if you were good enough, quiet enough, helpful enough, that parent would finally stay present. But they never did. And now you are replaying that same drama with every avoidant partner you meet. Your brain is addicted to the hope, because hope gives you a hit of dopamine. Every time they give you a crumb of affection after a week of silence, your brain lights up. You feel relief. You feel chosen. But that relief is temporary, because the silence always comes back. The distance always returns, and you are left waiting for the next crumb. This is not love. This is an addiction cycle. The avoidant is the unpredictable reward, and you are the gambler who keeps pulling the lever, believing the next pull will be different. But the machine is broken. It will never pay out what you deserve. And the hardest truth is this. The avoidant person is not capable of giving you what you need, not because they are bad, but because they are unhealed. And no amount of your love can heal them. Healing must come from inside. They have to want it. They have to work for it. They have to sit in the discomfort they have been running from for 30 or 40 years. Most will never do that. Most will go from relationship to relationship, leaving a trail of endurance people who thought they were the exception. You are not the exception. And that is not a failure on your part. That is just the reality of avoidant attachment. They do not marry the person who challenges them. They marry the person who endures. Because endurance asks nothing of them. Endurance does not require growth. Endurance does not require them to look in the mirror. Endurance is comfortable. And comfortable is the avoidant's favorite word. But here is what the endurance person rarely sees. Your comfort is a cage. You have convinced yourself that staying is easier than leaving, that the pain you know is better than the pain you do not know. But is that true? Is it really easier to wake up next to someone who makes you feel alone? Is it really easier to sleep beside a stranger who shares your bed? Is it really easier to spend another holiday pretending everything is fine while your chest feels hollow? That is not easier. That is just familiar. and your brain confuses familiarity with safety, but they are not the same. A burning house is familiar, but you would not stay inside just because you know the layout. You would run, and you need to start running from relationships that burn your spirit one small flame at a time. Let me give you a new way to think about marriage. Marriage is not about finding someone who tolerates you. It is about finding someone who celebrates you. Someone who sees your tired eyes and makes you tea without asking. Someone who notices when you are quiet and asks, "What is on your heart?" Someone who does not run when you cry but holds you tighter. That person exists, but you will never find them while you are busy enduring for someone who does not even see you. You are occupying the wrong seat. You are at a table where you are not wanted. And the longer you sit there, the more you miss the invitation from the table where you belong. Now, I want you to feel something uncomfortable. Anger, not the destructive kind, the clean kind, the kind that says, "I deserve better." Many endurance people are terrified of their own anger. They were taught that anger is bad, that anger makes you unlovable. But anger is just information. It tells you when a boundary has been crossed. It tells you when you are being treated unfairly. And if you have been enduring for years, your anger is not the problem. Your lack of access to your anger is the problem. You have buried your anger so deep that you cannot feel it anymore. You replaced it with exhaustion, with numbness, with overeating or overworking or oversleeping. Those are not personality flaws. Those are symptoms of suppressed anger. Your body is screaming what your mouth will not say. I am tired of being treated like an option. So let us practice something right now. Say this in your mind. I am allowed to be angry. Say it again. I am allowed to want more. One more time. I am allowed to leave. Those sentences might feel foreign. They might feel scary. That is okay. That is just your old programming fighting to stay alive. But you are not your programming. You are the one who can rewrite it. And rewriting starts with one small shift. Stop asking, what do they need? Start asking, what do I need? The avoidant person asks themselves that question every single day. That is why they seem so calm. They prioritize their own needs without guilt. You need to learn to do the same, not to become cold, but to become whole. A whole person can love without disappearing. A whole person can give without emptying. A whole person can stay without suffering. The marriage between an avoidant and an endurance person is not a failure of love. It is a failure of self-knowledge. The avoidant does not know themselves well enough to stop running. The endurance person does not know themselves well enough to stop chasing. Both are lost, but only one of them is watching this video right now. Only one of them is ready to change. That is you. And change does not mean you have to leave tomorrow. It does not mean you have to start a fight tonight. It means you start telling yourself the truth. The truth is, you have been pretending that everything is fine. The truth is, you have been shrinking yourself to fit a space that was too small for you from the beginning. The truth is, you deserve a love that does not require you to abandon yourself. In the next section, we will talk about the exact steps to stop attracting avoidant partners. We will talk about how to become someone who is chosen, not just tolerated. We will talk about the 3 psychological shifts that turn an endurance person into a secure person. But for now, sit with this. You are not broken because you stayed. You are not weak because you hoped. You are human, and every human wants to be loved. The difference now is that you see the pattern, and seeing it is the beginning of breaking it. Do not look away. Stay with me.